Shalom, peace and blessings. Welcome to the Fourth Angels Learning Center. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And we're going to be continuing or ending our Romans chapter study. And we are on Romans chapter 15. So without any further ado, we're going to continue. And for those who just started watching this, who the first time that you're seeing this series is this part here, I want you guys to understand that what we're doing is we're not we're just attempting to reveal what's already in the scriptures, the harmony between the Torah and Paul's writings, as well as the dependency that Paul has on the Torah and the prophets in regards to his own teachings. We teach that Paul is not creating a brand new way of thinking outside of what was written by Moses and the prophets. We believe that Paul is actually elaborating and expounding on the same things that was expressed in the books of Moses and the prophets. So if you haven't seen the very first part of this series, which is called Meeting Paul for the First Time, I suggest that you go and check that out so that way you can get a context and see for yourself the things that Paul says he preaches from his own words in his letters, especially in the book of Acts. So let's continue. We're going to be on chapter 15 of Romans. So let me pull it up. All right, and we're going to read this in groups of 11. We're going to read this 11 verses at a time, and then we're going to expound on those verses. All right, so let's start from verse 1. It says here, "We then that are strong ought not to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves." I'm sorry, let me read that again. So for those who saw chapter 14, we see that the whole context is not focused on Sabbath. It's not focused on unclean foods. It's focused on the mindset of those who misunderstand scripture. It's telling you how to approach individuals who practice things that's not commanded of them in scripture. And that's what it says about eating food that others believe is not good to eat, that you ought to be considerate of that person's conscience in order to help that person to grow and not just use your liberty as a careless act of just self-gratification, but that you're going to put your liberty aside, not the commandments aside. You're going to put your liberty aside so that way you can assist someone who is weaker in understanding, grow in their understanding and become better in serving Yah. So this is what the continuation is. So we're going to look at the last couple verses here. It says here, have you faith? Have it to yourself before Elohim. Happy is he that contemns not himself in the thing that he allows. And he that doubts is damned if he eats, because he eats not of faith. For whatsoever is not of faith is sin. Meaning if you do whatever you think you're doing, and you're not clear about it, but if you're doing something in your conscience believing that Yah is against it, you are going against Yah in your nature, in your will. Why? Because in your conscience, you believe that he said something. So when you act, you have two choices on how to act on what Yah says. You either act in obedience or you act in disobedience. If you're doubtful on what Yah says and you don't know, you search it out. If you believe he said something, but you're not sure, you do what you primarily think. And as you search it out, you also have a multitude of counselors. You talk to your brothers and sisters. You share your ideas, so that way you're not just an isolated individual just doing whatever he thinks is Yah's desire. So this is the ending of it. So then it says here, we that are strong. So it talks about those who are weak, and now it's talking about those who are strong. We that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. Praise Yah. He's telling us that our responsibility is for one another. So it says here, let every one of us please his neighbor for his good to edification. For if even Messiah pleased not himself, But as it is written, the reproaches of them that reproach you fell on me. For whatsoever things were written before time were written for our learning, that we, through patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope. Now the Elohim of patience and consolation grant you to be like-minded one toward another according to Yahushua Messiah, that you may have one mind and one mouth to glorify Elohim, even the Father of our Master Yahushua Messiah. Wherefore do not receive one another, or wherefore receive one another, as Messiah also received us to the glory of Elohim. Now I say that Yahushua Messiah was a minister of the circumcision for the truth of Elohim, to confirm the promises made unto the fathers, and that the nations might glorify Elohim from his mercy, as it is written, for this cause I will confess you among the nations and sing unto your name. We're going to go back and we're going to look at what the prophets say. Since it's talking about it being written, we're going to look back at where it's located amongst the Torah and the prophets. Verse 10 and 11 says, again he says, rejoice ye nations with his people. And again, praise yahuah, all ye nations, and extol him or exalt him or admire him, all ye people. So it's talking about the nations and all the people, and how they ought to approach this situation, especially learning about his son. So let's go back up. It clearly, again, the same principle that we was looking at in chapter 14 is still here. Those of you who are strong. I like the fact that it says those of you, we then that are strong. If you are the one that believe that you are strong, I believe that if anyone's conscience has been basically confirming any information, so they're following because of faithfulness, because of desire to do his will. If you're doing it incorrectly, your will and your heart and your mind is obeying Yah because you believe that this is what he said. So everyone is in this category. This means that everyone is responsible for everyone. Why? Because those who are weak don't know they're weak in understanding. They believe in what they believe. Those who believe things that are not in the scripture, but they believe that it's describing what they think, they are looking at themselves like they understand. So if you are looking at yourself like you understand, then here's the responsibility that you have for a person who understands. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities or the weaknesses of the weak and not to please ourselves. Let every one of us please his neighbor for his good to edification, meaning building up of knowledge. You see that? And then it goes into Messiah. For even Messiah pleased not himself, as it is written, the reproaches of them that reproach you fell on me. So let's look at a few things, right? Matter of fact, let's see if we could see where this is cross-reference from. I believe this is coming from, I believe this verse 3 is Paul quoting Isaiah 53. So that's interesting. Let me see what it says here. Okay, Psalm 69, verse 9. For the zeal of your house have eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproach you are fallen upon me. Psalm 69, verse 9. Psalm 69, verse 20, it says, reproach have broken my heart, and I am full of heaviness, and I looked for some to take pity, but there was none, and for comforters, but I have found none. Very interesting. Psalms 89, looking at verse 50 to 51, and it says, remember the master, the reproach of your servants, how I do bear in my bosom the reproach of all the mighty people, wherewith your enemies have reproached, O yahuah, wherewith they have reproached the footsteps of your anointed. So this is all coming from Psalms. I want to just confirm a little bit why Psalms is definitely important in regards to Messiah speaking on the things that Messiah would actually have to experience. So when Messiah resurrected in, I believe it's in Luke chapter 24. Let's see if we can find it. Okay. So it says here, I believe this is when he was talking to those people that was walking into Emmaus, and they didn't know it was him until he broke the bread. In Luke chapter 24, verse 27, when he starts to explain, he started from Moses and all the prophets, and he expounded unto them all the scriptures, the things concerning himself. Later on, he speaks to his disciples, and he does the same thing, but it's interesting what it says. It says, he said to them, these are the words which I spoke unto you while I was yet with you, that all the things must be fulfilled of the things written in the law of Moses, in the prophets, and then it says here, and in the Psalms concerning me. Then opened he their understanding that they might understand the scriptures. So Paul is basically expressing the same thing that Messiah said, that the Psalms was speaking on things concerning himself. The experience that David has was a type of experience that Messiah was going to literally have. There's even moments where David expressed things like death. He referred to things as death and resurrection as well. So as we move forward, we're going to look at other verses that it talks about. Verse 6, I have here in my notes. It says here that you may be one mind and one mouth glorify Elohim, even the Father of our Master Yahushua Messiah. And this comes from Zephaniah. All right, so we were going to look at Zephaniah. Zephaniah chapter 3. I'm going to look at a few verses here because we want to make sure that we're sure that Paul Wait 1 second. All right. We want to make sure that Paul, his expression, in his expression of what he's saying, the scriptures is saying. So let's look at Zephaniah chapter 3. It says here in verse 1, woe unto her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. She obeyed not the voice. She received not correction. And it's interesting that it calls it the voice, right? We'll talk about that at another time. She obeyed not the voice. She received not correction, and she trusted not in yahuah. She drew not near to her Elohim. Her rulers within her are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves. They gnaw not the bones till the morrow. Her prophets are light and treacherous persons, meaning that they take things lightly, that they don't put weight on things that have weight. Messiah talks about the weightier matters, and it says here that her prophets are light. And it says here her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law, meaning that they've shredded the understanding and the interpretation of what the law, the instructions are supposed to be revealing. It says here the righteous yahuah is in the midst of them, and he will not do iniquity. The righteous will not do iniquity. Every morning does he bring his judgment to light. He fails not, but the unjust knows no shame. Meaning that they're not exposing themselves to Yah. They're not bringing their sins to Yah. It says here the righteous are bringing their shortcomings to Yah, but the unrighteous have no shame. It says here, I have cut off the nations, have towers are their towers are desolate. I made their streets waste, and none passes by. Their cities are destroyed, so that there's no man, that there's none inhabitant. And I said, surely you will fear me, and you will receive instruction. So their indwelling should not be cut off, howsoever I punished them. But they rose early and corrupted all their doings. So Yah is saying, I'm going to punish them. I'm going to give them instructions, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to do the right thing. And then it says here, but they rose up and they corrupted all their doings. Therefore, wait ye upon me, saith Yahuwah, talking to the righteous, unto the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them my indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. Verse 9, it says here, for then I will turn to the people a pure language. Now listen to this statement. This is the same statement that Paul was making. I will turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of Yahuwah, to serve him with one, what it says, with one consent. With one consent, meaning that they are in agreement. Let me just break that down, because this verse is being used in many different ways pertaining to language, like actual language. So he says they're going to have a pure, and if you look at what that pure, it says that it's going to be polished, purified, clarified. It's a clarifying language, and it says here that the word language or lip is referring to the like an actual mouth, like your mouth is going to be pure, so that way you can call upon the name of Yahuwah to serve him with one, and then it says consent, and it talks about bearing the burdens, one agreement. We are in one agreement. We are bearing on our shoulders this responsibility, or we're yoked together. We are in agreement together. So this is what this is saying. Not that the people is gonna all speak one language, but that they're all going to call upon the name of Yahuwah to serve him. They're going to call on him properly. They're going to call on him correctly with the correct understanding. And when they do it together, they're going to have the same understanding, and they're going to give the same will, a desire, or the same part, right? So it says here, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughters of my dispersed, shall be my offering. In that day, shall you not be ashamed for all your doings, wherein you have transgressed against me? For then I will take away out of the midst of you them that rejoice in your pride, and you shall no more be haughty because of my holy mountain. And I will also leave in the midst of you an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of Yahuwah. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. So again, they shall not do iniquity, they shall not speak any lies, they shall not have a deceitful tongue in their mouth. This is what it's referring to as the pure lip, or the pure, according to this translation, a pure language. Other translations most likely translated differently. So it says here, I turn the people's a tongue for her generation. I'm not sure I understand what that's saying. Let's look at a few ones that says that King James says language. Okay, most of them say language. It's interesting. Okay, so when you look at the word, it says a pure language, and further down, and so that way they can have one consent. And it says here in verse 13 that they're not going to have no lies in their mouth. They're not going to have no deceit in their mouth. They're going to have a pure speech. Paul mentions this also in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. Let's see if I can pull this up. And he says here, now I beseech you, dear brethren, in the name of our Master Yahushua Messiah. And then it says here that you all speak the same thing, that we all give one consent, that there be no divisions among you. And he says that you be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment. This is exactly what Zephaniah chapter 3 is talking about. Now, as far as language is concerned, that's not the emphasis. The emphasis is that the mind and the opinion are the same, that there's no divisions because they are perfectly joined together in the same mind. And that when they have the same mind, they speak together, they speak the same thing. And this is what it says in Zephaniah, having that same consent. And this is what, when we go to Romans 15, this is what we see in verse 6. It says here that you may have one mind and one mouth glorify Elohim, even the Father of our Master Yahushua Messiah. So if Yah decides to give an actual language, pure language, we'll definitely find that out at that time. It makes sense that that will happen at the coming of Messiah, but because there'll be no need for different languages if we're all together in one kingdom. But that's up to Yah. As far as the context is concerned, the emphasis was that the people were in rebellion, so that they needed to be restored to speak the same way to Yah, to have the same understanding, the same mind towards Yah and towards his Torah. And this is what it's saying here. So let's continue. Verse 8 is interesting as well. It says, now I say unto you that Yahushua Messiah was a minister of the circumcision for the truth of Elohim, to confirm the promises made unto the fathers. So it's interesting. The promises made unto the fathers. So he's trying to bring us back. He's using the teaching of Yahushua Messiah to bring us back to an understanding of the promises made to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You see, so Paul is not trying to deviate from anything. He's trying to help us understand it in its fulfillment. Not, if you look around, there's many people starting to teach against many of the fulfillments that has occurred through Yahushua Messiah. Matter of fact, some are even canceling out the New Testament because of a lack of understanding of Paul's writings. But it says here clearly that he is trying to reveal the what Messiah has done in revealing the truth of Elohim, to confirm the promises made unto the fathers. And then it says here in verse 9, and that the nations might glorify Elohim for his mercy, as it is written, for this reason I will confess to you among the nations and sing unto your name. This also comes from David, Psalms 18, I believe. Let's look at it. This also comes from Psalms 18, looking at verse 49 and 50. And it says here, therefore I will give thanks unto you, O Yahuwah, among the nations, and sing praises unto your name. Great deliverance gives he to his king, and shows mercy to his anointed, to David and to his seed forever. So this statement here, I will give thanks unto Yahuwah, O among the nations. Now, many people have an issue with this word heathen. I have a study talking about that there is no such thing as the word heathen. Heathen is not a Greek or Hebrew word. It is a Dutch word, and it is just covering the word goyi, which means nations. There's no word for detestable, abominable nation. Like the word heathen is used that way, is used as a derogatory term, but it was coined as a derogatory term by the Roman Catholic Church. But it's a Dutch word. It actually means in its origin, it means to actually live in a remote country. That's what it means. So when the people that lived in remote farm country, away from the cities that were being controlled by the Roman Catholic Church, they would use the word heathen to talk about how separate they were from the Roman Church. That's where they get the word heathen. The word goyi is everywhere. For nations, even the word Gentile is the same. There's no such thing as the word Gentile. Gentile is a Latin word. Heathen is a Dutch word. All of those words is the same word in Hebrew, goyi. So we clearly see here that he will give thanks unto Yahuwah among the nations. Like the nations are going to hear these praises. The nations are going to hear all the things that Messiah has done, all the promises that has been fulfilled for our fathers as well. So Paul is not neglecting anything. He's saying that all the promises that was made to the Father is going to be magnified to the nations so they can glorify the Father as well. So let's continue to move forward. Verse 10, it says, and again, rejoice ye nations with his people. Let's look at a verse that from Torah that says that kind of emphasizes on that idea. Deuteronomy 32, looking at verse 43. And it says here, rejoice, O ye nations, with his people. Rejoice, O ye nations, with his people, because he will avenge the blood of his servants and will render vengeance to his adversaries and be merciful unto his land and to his people. So he's not talking only about his people. He's talking about the nations that have not rejected Yah. So rejoice, nations, with his people, because Yah will take vengeance. He will basically give judgment on the things that people has done to Yah's people. Let's come back. Now let's continue to move forward. Let me go back to Romans. All right, we're in verse 12. It says here again, Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah says, there shall be a root of Jesse, and he shall rise to reign over the nations. In him shall the nations trust. Now the Elohim of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that you may abound in hope through the power of the set apart Ruach, set apart spirit. And I myself also am persuaded of you, my brethren, that you are full of goodness, filled with all knowledge, able also to admonish one another. Nevertheless, brethren, I have written the more boldly unto you in some sort, as putting you in mind, because of the grace that is given unto me of Elohim, that I should be the minister of Yahushua Messiah to the nations, ministering the good news of Elohim, that the offering up of the nations might be acceptable, being set apart by the set apart Ruach. So he's saying that he is basically ordained to give this message, not just to give a message. The emphasis here is not that he's just simply giving you a message. The ministering of the good news is the teaching of it, is the assisting you in understanding the good news in its fullest extent. This is why he's saying that you, in verse 14, that they should be filled with knowledge and able to admonish one another, because he's not just telling them a message, he's giving them understanding of the scriptures. Verse 17, it says, I have therefore, wherefore I may glorify through Yahushua Messiah in those things which pertain to Elohim, because I will not dare to speak of any of those things which Messiah did not do by me, or the things that he did not reveal to me, or the things that he did not do through me. I'm not going to be boasting about to make the nations obedient by word or deed. This is what many people do today. They look at something that they don't understand, and they try to relay some type of understanding of it with their own strength or with their own understanding. This is what you ought not to do. You ought to be very honest in your study of the Word of Yah. You ought to say the things that you do not understand. You ought to also refrain from things that you're not totally clear of as well. You should not be teaching things or expressing to people or sharing things that you're not even understanding yourself. You share and you deliver the things that you are confident of. And that's what gives glory to Yah, that the definitive aspect of this truth, the absolute correct understanding of what I'm sharing is what's going to be confirmed by the nations. But my doubts and my confusion and all of these other things, you ought not to speak about those things. But people are not honest. They try to share things that they think things come as a eureka moment, and that's not how you ought to do that. Verse 19 says, through mighty signs and wonders by the power of the Spirit of Elohim, so that from Jerusalem and around about unto Illyricum, I have fully preached the good news of Messiah. It says, yea, so have I strived to preach the good news, not where Messiah was named, lest I should build on another man's foundation. Meaning that there were other people teaching, and he wasn't going to go and kind of like teach on top of those people. Where Peter went, where James went, where John went, he's not going to go and try to reteach those people. So it says here, but as it is written, to whom he has not spoken of, they shall see, and they have not heard. They that have not heard, they shall understand. We're going to look at some verses that Paul is saying is being fulfilled in the work that not only he's doing, but in the work that everyone that's teaching the nations is doing. Verse 22, and then we're going to go back and look at this. It says here, for which cause also I have been much hindered from coming to you. Okay, so now he's going to go into basically his closing statements, and we're going to look at that to see if there's anything we could pull out of there. So there's a few verses that I wanted to touch on. This verse here in Isaiah, it comes from Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6, but also in the book of Psalms. So it's interesting that Isaiah, let's look at the book of Psalms first, because David was king before Isaiah became a prophet. Isaiah was a prophet during the time of Hezekiah. So that's later on down the line when the northern and southern kingdom was already divided. Isaiah was raised up to be a prophet. So let's look at David, Psalms 22, verse 28, and it says, for the kingdom is yahuah's, and he is the governor among the nations. You see that? So the kingdom is yahuah's, and he is a governor among the nations. Let's look at verse 27 as well. All the ends of the world shall remember and turn unto yahuah, and all the kindreds of the nations shall worship before you. For the kingdom is yahuah's, he is the governor among the nations. So this is very clear. The kindreds, right? All the families of the nations. This is what he told Abraham. This is basically what he promised. All the families of the earth was going to be blessed. The covenant that all the families of the earth used to be in when Noah was there, this is what is being restored. So this is what David said. And now the prophet Isaiah is interesting. The prophet Isaiah relays the same sentiments, showing that David and the prophets are actually, reflecting on the same ideas, or Yah is giving them the same inspiration. Verse 6 of Isaiah 49. And he said, it is a light thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give you for a light to the nations, that you may be my salvation unto the ends of the earth. He's not talking about prophets, or he's not talking about Israel, because he says that he has to raise up the 12 tribes of Jacob. Not only does he have to raise up the 12 tribes of Jacob, he also has to restore those who are left of Israel. And not only does he have to restore those who are left of Israel, but Yah is going to give him for a light to the nations, that he, whoever this person is, which we know as Yahushua, that he may be Yah's salvation unto the end of the earth. So Yah is going to utilize someone to raise up tribes of Jacob, to restore Israel, and also to be a light to the nations. So he is basically the door to salvation to all the ends of the earth. This is very clear who this is. Another verse that stood out was verse 21 in Romans. Let's go back there. It says here, it is written. So again, Paul is really pointing out a lot of scripture from the prophets. To be thinking that he's bringing like a brand new idea is really, there really is no examining of his letters properly. Like you're not looking at all the things he's saying is fulfilled, all the prophets that he's quoting, all the Torah, the instructions that he's saying applies. People are not listening to what he's saying. So it says here, for it is written, to whom he has not spoken of, they shall see. They that have not heard shall understand. Now, there's quite a few verses in the book of Isaiah that talks about this. It seems like Paul is a fan of the book of Isaiah. So was Messiah. But let's look at Isaiah 52, looking at verse 13 to 15. And it says here, behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. Right? As many were astonished at you, his visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. So shall he sprinkle many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at him, for that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. So it's talking about, even in Matthew 24, it's talking about how the nations are going to hear and be blown away at the truth of what Yahushua has done, even at how he was treated. Right here, it talked about how he wasn't even recognizable during his abuse. Let me see if I could. Yeah. So he was talking about during his him being put in jail, him being beaten and put on a tree. Interesting thing is that we see Isaiah talking about this, and then we see the man, the Roman soldier that's at the tree looking up at him saying, truly this was the son of Yah. You know, so it's interesting how Isaiah prophesies about how people from different nations would be basically astonished at who this really was. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 3 to 4, it says here, many people shall go and say, come, let's go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of Elohim of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem. He shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. O house of Jacob, come ye, let us walk in the light of Yahuwah. This is a prophecy talking about the work that has to be done to the nation. So it's interesting how the work being done to the nations have started already, and it's all written. We all have record of it in the New Testament. These letters and these accounts are eyewitness accounts of what was going on, of how the word of Yah and the law, as we saw here in verse 3, right? For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word from Jerusalem. And it's interesting how the council in Acts 15 was in Jerusalem, and they were determining what to bring to the nations. All the nations, the law, out of Zion shall go forth the law. So it's interesting how many people are saying that the New Testament is a teaching that the law is done away with, when in actuality, the prophecy from Isaiah is saying that the law will come out, will go out from them, and the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem. That the law is actually going to be taught, and the word is going to be taught. And his ways, it says here, he will teach us his ways and we will walk in his paths. So it's interesting how many people are kind of ignoring these prophecies, and these prophecies started to come true in the New Testament, in what people call the New Testament. All right, so let's continue and finish up the chapter. All right, we're going to start from verse 23. It says here, but now having no more places of these parts, having a great desire for many years to come to you, whensoever I take my journey into Spain, I will come to you, for I trust to see you in my journey and to be brought on my way there by you. if first I be somewhat filled with your company. But now I go to Jerusalem to minister unto the saints. This is not a time in which he was captive yet. It was later on in the book of Acts that you will see him saying he has to go to Rome, and a prophet coming to him telling him what is going to happen to him when he goes to Rome. Verse 26 says, "For if it pleased them in Macedonia and Achaia to make a certain contribution to the poor saints which are at Jerusalem," and it says it had pleased them verily, and their debtors that their debtors they are. For if the nations have been made partakers of your spiritual things, their duty is also to minister unto them carnal things, meaning things that they need on this earth: food, shelter, water. When therefore I have performed this and have sealed to them this fruit, I will come to you by Spain, and I am sure that when I come to you, I shall come in the fullness of the blessing of the good news of Messiah. Now I beseech you, brethren of the Master Yahushua Messiah, for your sake, for the love of the Ruach, the Spirit, that you strive together with me in your prayers to Elohim for me, that I may be delivered from them that do not believe in Judea, those who do not believe in that area, and that my service which I have for Jerusalem may be accepted by the saints, that I may come to you with joy by the will of Elohim, and may with you be refreshed. Now the Elohim of peace be with you all. Amen. Praise Yah. So this is basically the concluding of this book. So he's, after addressing some of the issues that they had and basically trying to deliver some new aspects that they need to understand, he's attempting to basically comfort them, let them know that he's trying to get to where they're located so he can fellowship with them. And not only so that way he can give to them, but that he himself can feel the blessing of being around other believers as well. And I don't think that many people understand that much. You know, there's a lot of people who, when they see a teacher that they like, they don't realize that they're not different from you. They need fellowship from you, like in an honest way, not in necessarily in an admiration type of way. But I'm not saying you can't admire people that you admire or honor, but that they do need you to be honest towards them as well, so that way they can be refreshed as well, so they can be edified and learn as well. So praise Yah. Look forward to the next study. Shalom.